Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or evening, wherever you are tuning in from. So happy Friday morning to everyone here. So I am broadcasting live right now on my YouTube channel, my Facebook fan page, which is Let's Break the Silence, and also my private Facebook group. So for those of you who are watching the live right now, please let us know in the comments below. Let us know where you are tuning in from. So welcome to my podcast, which is Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. Please like and subscribe to my podcast on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple, Google, and all the live streams. And if you are watching live right now on my YouTube channel, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. And also, I have relaunched a brand new website. So please go to letsbreakthesilence.com and subscribe to my newsletter for special announcements and live events. So I'm really super excited to bring on a very special guest today. And her name is Alyse Maslonik. Okay. So before I introduce her, we're going to be talking about how Alyse overcame trauma and domestic violence. Okay. So Alyse, she began her life as a child of unfortunate circumstances. Those tough experiences, she was determined to make the world a better place for others and used her desire to escape her surroundings as fuel to push others forward. At age 21, with a measly $63 to her name, she packed up everything she owned and set out on a journey to change her life. By the age of 23, she was managing a multi-million-dollar property asset in Charlotte, North Carolina. She went on to become one of the youngest sales and marketing representatives for a custom home builder in the Charlotte region, where she developed a love of helping people achieve their own piece of the American dream through home ownership. Alyse would go on to spend many years in corporate roles, consistently pushing back against the status quo to create change within systems of injustice and inequity. Reflecting on her journey from humble beginnings to success, she contemplated how to give back to children that needed it the most. As a need-based scholarship recipient in her childhood, Alyse recognizes the significance her education had in her ability to stop the cycle of generational poverty. With fierce determination and a belief that she could make a difference in growing funding for financial aid and scholarships for underprivileged children, Alyse founded Redefined Advisors, LLC, a strategic development partner for non-public and private schools, and offers a wide array of services to help schools grow funding and enrollment. As CEO of Redefined Advisors, LLC, Alyse continues her lifelong mission through the Triumph Over Tragedy Scholarship Award, which provides additional scholarships to students that have demonstrated their ability to triumph over tragedy and who have remained resilient in the face of adversity. So without further ado, good morning, Alyse.
Good morning, Angeline. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You know, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And I'll tell you why, because we both share the same mission and vision to help domestic abuse survivors thrive. And let me just see who is joining us today. Oh, Jan, my very good friend. Good morning from Florida. Hi, Jan. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I actually created a live event here on Facebook, so I invited the ladies to join us today. So, Alyse, you know, what you've gone through in your life, you know, please tell us, you know, what happened. You know, share your story, please, to the viewers and the audience who are going to be tuning in today or are going to be watching the replay later. So
sure. Yeah, so I've had some ups and downs all throughout my life. It's very much been a roller coaster, but I started my life, my biological father forced us into a domestic abuse shelter. He attempted to, end my mother's life with an axe while my sister and I were home. And thankfully, a neighbor came over at the same time to ask my mom to babysit his twins in the next few days, and he was able to call the police, and they were able to come and get us to the Alice Paul House, which is the domestic abuse shelter that was really there for us, and that we called home for a while until we got on our feet. So that was really the foundation of my life. I had a really strong mom, though, to be able to get out, stay out, and allow us to have that safe haven for a while. And then we, had a stepfather that ended up abusing us for many years, about 7 years. And whenever I was older, we realized there were multiple victims. The state picked it up in criminal charges. We testified against him. And unfortunately, he walked away a free man. So I've gone through that kind of re-victimization through the court system that many victims with that same experience have felt. So all of that really led to me wanting to give back to kids that don't have the tools, that don't have the resources to stop that cycle and to heal so that we can have better lives.
Right, exactly. And you have gone through so much. So survivors who have gone through abuse, okay, and I see it more and more now of survivors for the world shaming victims. And there's no funding available, or like I read a lot where domestic abuse survivors are having trouble getting funding so they can provide for themselves, because most of them are single moms, with children. So, I mean, are there any, resources, available for them to tap into at this time?
So there are. One of the main issues that I've focused my attention on lately is what's called VOCA funding, which is Victim of Crime Act funding that is supposed to flow from the state to these domestic abuse shelters that provide programming for, moms in that position and domestic abuse victims that are in need of help. In the way that the laws have changed, that VOCA funding, it's still there, but it's being reduced every single year. And so the communities really need to rally together and understand the impact and importance of these programs and having these shelters for these victims to, be able to get back up on their feet. And so that's something that we are working on. But yes, there are so many nonprofit organizations out there. They sometimes are really difficult to find, but they are in your communities. There are people that you can reach out to and have a safe place and loving arms to go to if you need it.
Okay, good. And that's important, because here in New York State, I don't know if there is a New York State coalition for domestic abuse survivors. So now legislation is being pushed right now to get more funding for domestic abuse survivors, because back when COVID happened, the rate went up 3,000%. And shelters were shut down, everything was shut down. So it's important for them to have a voice, because this is a global issue. Yeah,
absolutely. It's such a big issue, and I think it's so good that there's podcasts just like yours, Let's Break the Silence, because it's so necessary for us to stop that stigma. Because what happens is, because we don't talk about it often, and it's you feel shame for talking about it, the organizations that do the work, they don't really get the light shined onto them that is so important to bring awareness, to bring in donations, to grow their capability to help more women. So I do think talking about it, being able to, take away that shame and take away that stigma is so important. It will only do good for our communities, because these organizations need to be more visible and have and gain more support.
Right. And I totally understand that. So the state, where do you live in right now?
Yes, I live in Pennsylvania.
Right, Pennsylvania. Okay. Okay, so are there any resources for women to tap into in the state of Pennsylvania or on the local level?
Yeah, on the local level, the Alice Paul House is just a wonderful organization. They're actually located in Indiana County, but they have so many so very many sister organizations that they can put you in touch with whoever and whatever resources that a victim may need. So I would always highly recommend the Alice Paul House. They were the domestic abuse shelter that helped save our family, and I know that they just do incredible work, and the women there are so committed to what they do in helping women and children and all victims of domestic abuse to get a hand up in a time of need.
Right. And now, fast forward to now, you founded your own company. So tell us about that, please.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I just kept having this feeling that I needed to step out and get out of the corporate hamster wheel. And when I was younger, obviously we were an economically disadvantaged families, right? So we didn't have many of the resources that other families had. And I was lucky enough to receive a need-based scholarship to get out of the school that I was in that I wasn't really thriving at. And I got a tuition scholarship to attend a private school. And it really changed the trajectory of my life and gave me the opportunity to be around a much different, more diverse culture than I had ever been. And I realized that played such a huge role. And education, for me, in my opinion, is such a vital key to stopping the cycle and allowing these children to change the trajectory of their lives. So I founded Redefined Advisors, which is a development company for private and non-public schools, which we raised, as we sit today, about $11 million since we started in student scholarships for underprivileged kids to cover their tuition so that they can attend a school that better fits their needs, that gives them the keys to success and really sets them up on a path toward a better life.
Redefined Advisors LLC then, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so tell us again, when did you start your company?
So we officially became a registered company in September of 2021, but we did not start fundraising until January of 2022. So it's very, very early on. So in a little over a year, we've raised about $11 million.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yes.
So how did that happen? Did you like networking?
No, yeah. So what happened is I was working, I was in banking and real estate, and I had a good idea of what it was necessary to start a company. I always try to be a sponge and pick up as much information as people will share with me. And I was working for another company, a development company, doing something similar. And I realized, wow, I think I can do this on my own and use my story. Like, I've lived this. Like, I lived these scholarships. I am a product of them. So how cool would it be to have a company that was being led by someone that truly lived that experience? So I had an amazing woman that I worked with, and she was just so encouraging and told me, like, you can do this. I really believe in you. And she was always my sounding board when I was developing this company. And she was the first person I called whenever I signed my first big contract, and she came on board, and she's been with me ever since.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So, as far as, let's go back to the abuse, like what are the tools that you incorporated in overcoming, because you went through a lot, overcoming abuse and sexual abuse. So what were the tools that you implemented in order to get where you are right now?
Well, that's such a good question. And I didn't learn this until I was in my 30s, but I had just been what felt like running away for decades, just running full speed ahead to get away from it. And what I realized is the running away from your trauma is a race you'll never win. We have to let it catch up to us, and we have to heal from it. So I've used a lot of therapy. I am a big advocate of therapy and really talking it out. I realize that I can't hold it all in and
Okay.
make good of it, right? So for me, speaking about it really gives me an outlet to release it and release that shame and not feel like I have to hide who I am, and a big part of what shapes who I am today.
Right. Okay. And I resonate with that totally, because my podcast is a voice, represents, the voice for domestic abuse survivors. You're thriving and you're doing very well. So, for the ones now, why do you feel that victims can't leave their abuser? Because I read a lot, like in Facebook groups, and when I'm networking now, I'm going out, I'm going to be part of a workshop in a couple of weeks. So why do they feel stuck?
That's a really good question. I was actually just having this conversation because if you would ask any of my family, right, if I could ever be in like a marriage that was abusive, they would absolutely be like, anyone else, right? Truth and was happened to me, So I think a lot of it is, our desire to want to be kind to people and to be the bigger person. But when someone is manipulating you, it is a manipulation where I know for me, the whole gaslighting and convincing me that what I was seeing and what I was feeling and what I was experiencing wasn't actually true. And it makes you question your reality and makes you feel unsure of what your feelings are and double guess yourself. So I think for me, I believe that there are so many victims that through the manipulation of their abuser have been convinced that they can't trust their intuition, that what they're thinking and what they're feeling is wrong and that they're crazy, right? But it is not true. It is not true. But I think that plays, at least for me, it played a huge role in every time something bad would happen. I'd think, okay, this isn't right.
Yeah.
But then I'd question, wait, maybe I'm crazy, you know?
Yeah, because they think that they're crazy and they're doing something wrong.
Yes.
And then it's that whole downward spiral and everything. So the process of overcoming trauma and moving forward. So, what are tools that you incorporated, and what do you recommend for, victims who are looking to be victorious and overcoming that trauma and healing from that trauma?
That's another good question. I have maybe an unconventional way of looking at this. For me, I was so angry. I was so angry with what people had done to me in my life, that it was allowed to go on, that my abuser walked away, that the court system was not, helpful in rendering true justice, right? And I felt very, very angry. And what I realized was this whole time I was so angry and that fire burned so deep and it was so powerful. But the world kept making me feel, and society kept making me feel like I needed to get rid of that anger. But no one really told me that I could harness that anger and turn it into something good. And if you can use that anger when it burns so bright, instead of trying to stomp it out, to just use it as fuel into a project for good, it really fuels you and makes a big difference. So for me, I think I've really come to terms with my anger and have accepted it, and I don't feel shame, but I do use it as, you know what, people did me wrong, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to make the world a better place because I am the better person, and I can do that. I'm not going to let this anger eat away at me.
Right. Exactly. Taking ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And Jan says yes. See, Jan is an overcomer and survivor and thriving after domestic violence. So she is an amazing lady who's making great strides in her life. So let's talk about approaching the challenging feelings that linger after experiencing abuse. Because I know that there's, because it's something I just had a light bulb moment. Yesterday, I was reading something in one of the Facebook groups. Even though that they've been separated from their abuser, or let's say now they're divorced, they're working a part-time job, but they still have those lingering feelings after 6 months, even 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So how does one overcome that? I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
I think, again, for me, it really was a lot of therapy, but also realizing that the trauma that I had been through truly shaped every part of who I was. My thought process, the way I viewed things, every part of who I was changed in some way through trying to navigate abuse, right? And so whenever I look at it now, I think and have those thoughts, because I still to this day, I have them, and I just try to tell myself this is just biologic. It's not who I am. It's just the way that the brain works, right? And if we just let it go, breathe through the moment and move on and reassure ourselves, this is who I am. I am not that person. I am not what they did to me. I do not define myself by the trauma. I am strong. I am, focused, motivated, but I am not what they tried to make me. I think that reminder is so powerful and so important.
Right. And I agree with you. And I totally agree with you. So, like for my people, for my women, I have them focus a lot on gratitude and have them start journaling, because that's an outlet for them, to express their feelings. But for someone who just feels stuck, I mean, why should they feel stuck? I mean, I realized myself, as escaping 14 years ago from domestic abuse, that there was a second life for me. Yeah.
Yes. I just actually went through this with one of my friends, and it's like she was kind of stuck in a bad situation, and for so long she stayed and she stayed and she stayed, knowing that like this was not the existence that she wanted for the rest of her life, but she just felt like society wouldn't understand if she left. And now that she just had a big day in her life, and she spent all day emotionally like crying happy tears that like it is a whole different life, and you can step away. I think the decision's the hardest part.
There you go.
The decision is the hardest part. It genuinely is. And the feeling, I remember getting out of my previous marriage, and the weight that when I made that decision, I just felt so free. I felt so free for the first time, and just optimism filled my life, instead of always worrying like, oh, is he going to be home? Is he going to be upset? Is he, like, what am I walking into? I was able to chart my own course from there on out. And that was very powerful.
And that's good. I'm glad that you and I have similar stories. I chartered my own course and I paved, my own way. But as far as financial, okay, because there's a lot of women who are having trouble, financially. So how did you overcome that? I know that you started your organization, so it was just a leap of faith. I mean,
yeah.
What inspired you? Because this is very inspiring to me.
Sure. So I did, when it comes to financial situations, the nice thing is I made more than my partner by a lot. So I didn't have like those. So I recognized that I had maybe an easier ability than other women, right? Because finances, let's be honest, that they play a huge role.
Oh yeah,
a huge role. And I did make more than him, but I also didn't realize that he was spending a savings account down to nothing. So he had depleted like everything of ours. And so but I had the ability to earn and start over very quickly, if that makes sense. So I didn't really have anything when I left, but I knew that the jobs that I've had before, if I could just make it through a first few paychecks, I would be okay, you know?
That was me too. That
Mhm.
was me too.
Yeah.
Because he drained our savings account, and I ended up opening up a new bank account.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, because he drained everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, financial abuse, because that's really huge. But like, there's resources out there that they
Mhm.
can tap into.
Yes.
Yeah. So should they go like more to the local level? Call their, congressman, or,
Yeah, I think again, just in our, I am only aware of like our area, so I'm very granular when it comes to this. But
okay.
The Alyse Paul House in Pennsylvania, again, they take calls from all across the state, and they can point you into the right direction of your local county organization. And there's transportation help. There is cash assistance. There are organizations that help women when they have nothing. And when I tell you, when we went to the Alyse Paul House, we just had the clothes on our backs.
Wow.
We didn't even get to pack a bag. Like it was so, and they helped us through that. And so I think, at the end of the day, the financial abuse part is so huge, but don't allow that to hold you back from starting a new life if you're in an abusive relationship, because again, there are organizations out there and there's someone that will help you. And even if you have nothing, it is better to have your life, because let's be honest, that is a possibility, to lose your life in the fight in domestic abuse, right? And it's better to walk away and live the life you deserve instead of looking back 20 years and realizing that you stayed and didn't get to live your life to the fullest potential.
I stayed in mine for 23 years.
Mm.
Yeah, 20 too long, but it's a
Mhm.
lesson learned.
Mhm.
So now I'm able to help other women. So
Mhm.
break their silence, because I've always had a passion for, helping women regain their voice, because that's so important, because I don't like to see victims shamed.
Mhm.
They need resources. They need to provide, for their
Mhm.
children, because a lot of them who are coming out of domestic abuse, some are working.
Mhm.
I was able to go back to work, and provide for myself. I had no children though, but
Mhm.
for others,
Mhm.
but it's a mindset shift.
It really is. And I always say, when you talk about giving the voice back to the victims, there's this quote, and it sticks with me forever, because I remember I used to never talk about it. And then when I did, it seemed like the world wasn't ready to hear, or my people around me weren't ready to hear my story, right? But there's this quote, and it says, "For my whole life, I remained silent. So I'm just learning now how to tell my story. So please excuse me while I learn to adjust the volume."
I love
And
that.
I love that about how when you're first starting to tell your story and come into your own voice, sometimes it's not perceived as it should be, right? And I just love that you will find the voice that works for you and how you want to tell your story and how you want to share. And it's all up to you. You have the dial to decide how loud you want to be or how soft you want to be about telling your story. You own it.
There you go. You own it is right. Is right. Absolutely. And Jan says, love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you own your own voice.
Mm-hmm.
It is so true,
Mm-hmm.
ladies. You own your own voice. So
Take it.
take it. Right. I was
Mm-hmm.
just about to say, take it. Take that ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Take that ownership. And as a speaker and an author, I know that you do cover these painful topics.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that, and also the book.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm actually in the process of writing a memoir on my life, and it is, we're halfway through, and it is called The Anger She Keeps, a true story of rage and redemption. And it really talks about the whole anger of how for so long women are told that they shouldn't be angry and you have to forgive and you have to let go of that anger. But I really talk about how I kept that anger with me and used it as a way to propel myself out of the, out of the trauma. So that
Right.
I do write about all of my story, and it's wild to write it all down and relive everything that I've gone through and put it on paper. It is just a wonderful cathartic experience for me. And speaking about it, as I said, it gives me my power back, because as we talked about, going through the court system and having to share my story and then watching a judge say not guilty, I didn't talk for a long time because I felt like maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this didn't happen. And like, because the justice system didn't believe me. And so I didn't talk about it for a long time. So now coming to terms with the, injustices of the justice system and knowing that, yes, it is their true story and this did happen. And whether it met the threshold for beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt that the criminal justice system requires is another thing. But I know my truth, and it's nice to speak about and write about at this point in my life.
So it's called The Anger She Keeps.
Mm-hmm.
And when will that be coming out?
Well, that's a really good question. It should be towards the fall of this year.
Okay, the fall of this year. And it will be on Amazon, available on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay. You know what I want to do? I want to put that there on the sticker here. Yes. So be on the lookout, please, for The Anger She Keeps by Alyse. And it's coming out towards the fall of this year on Amazon.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So, and how about speaking events? I mean, how often do you go out and speak? And tell us about your coaching too.
Sure. So I, when it comes to speaking, I do a lot of speaking when it comes to student scholarships and tuition across the states. The experiences and the domestic abuse and abuse trauma speaking engagements, those are few and far between. I really put all of my energy into writing, and student scholarships is what I go and speak about across the country.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That's amazing. Good for you. Being the voice, for children too, because children are affected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, children are affected. So do you see a lot like with the, because I know that there are some visitation rights, as far as the abuser is concerned. I mean, have you ever witnessed that, or have you ever talked about it with your clients, or?
Yeah, no, that is a little outside of my scope.
Okay.
So I don't really handle that part of it. But when it comes to, that's a whole nother thing about inequity for victims and how sometimes it's stacked against them, because the custody and the child custody with visitation can really be used as a weapon against victims of domestic abuse so much.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, it's interesting how again, when you're in an abusive relationship, that person wants to control you. So if they can't control you, then it's like, I'm going to try to control the children and get to you through that way. And so I've definitely seen some of that. But again, with the Alice Paul House, there are options and tools available. So it doesn't need to be a fight that you take on by yourself.
Okay. All right. Good. Because we shouldn't fight alone.
No.
It takes a village to fight, especially, the legal system, because they're treated so unfairly. A lot of them are treated so unfairly, depending on the state that they live in. Now in New York, it's a little bit different. So, there are laws in place, but some states are very lax about it.
Yep.
And nothing happens unless, unfortunately,
something happens. Yes,
happens, right. And that's unfortunate.
Yes.
That's when they think, why is that? Do you know why? I mean,
I don't know why. I think it is sad because you are right. legally, nothing happens until something happens. And sometimes the threshold that you have to wait for something to happen before action is taken
Right.
is, I mean, it's life-threatening at that point. So why did we have to wait legally for it to be a life-threatening situation before action can be taken? And I look forward to those laws, changing and transforming as more advocates get involved, and we're breaking the silence on domestic abuse, because if we all stand up and help advocate for stricter laws and better protections for victims, our world will be a better place, and we won't have to wait until a life-threatening emergency before action is taken against the abuser.
Right. There you go. There you go. There you go. I love it. So where can people find you?
Sure. So our website is redefiningeducation.org.
Okay, redefiningeducation.org.
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
And then I am on LinkedIn. It's one of the biggest platforms that I use. Love LinkedIn. So you can find me, Alyse Maslonik, on LinkedIn.
Okay, so fine. And actually I connected with you there on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let me mark that down on LinkedIn. Okay, so let me do that. So folks, you can find Alyse Maslonik on LinkedIn, where you could, connect with her, and also redefiningeducation.org. So your website, you continue to accept donations then for.
Yeah. So what we do is, if we actually just use our business profit to fund our scholarships. So the Triumph Over Tragedy Scholarship is available to any student throughout the U.S. that to apply for, that may have really had a really rough time and just needs a hand up or extra funding for trade school or college, or that needs something. That's what it's there for. So if you know a student or a child that can really use a hand up, that wants to break the cycle, that just needs some financial tools, have them apply directly on our website, and we'll do everything that we can to make sure we get them the necessary funding.
That's great. Oh, I'm so happy you were on my show today.
Thank
so
you.
happy, Alyse, because I know that you have a very busy schedule and everything, and I'm glad that you wanted to break the silence on my show today. Let's break the silence with Angeline. So in closing, what's a special message that you would like to share with the audience today? And for those who are going to be tuning in, this will be live, by the way, in 2 weeks on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time. So that's when we launch but right now it's live on YouTube.
Sure.
So
I think for the biggest thing and the lesson that I've learned is, don't get comfortable in the comfortable, right? And it's okay to walk out into the fear of the unknown. And there is beauty waiting for you as soon as you do it. There is beauty waiting. It may be a little dark, right? But there is light and beauty that is waiting for you, that you deserve, that you can walk into and take that step. It just takes the first step, and then we've got you. There's lots of millions of other women that have been in your spot, and we will be there, and there's places to reach out. So walk into the fear of the unknown.
I love that. Walk into the fear of the unknown. Mm-hmm. You and I speak the same language. That's what I say all the time. Yeah, because once you're able to step into the fear of the unknown, you don't realize what's out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had to do it because I, for myself, realized that nothing was going to change. He wasn't going to change. And there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened. Yes. But thank God I overcame it and thriving and, still living in a nice, 2-bedroom apartment. I have a roof over my head. Yes. So if we can do it, ladies, you can do it.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So let me just recap everything. So Redefine Advisors LLC. So the memoir that is going to be coming out towards the fall of this season, it's called The Anger She Keeps, coming out towards the fall of this year on Amazon. So we will definitely keep in touch and be on the lookout for that.
Perfect.
You can contact Alyse through her website, which is redefiningeducation.org. And also you can connect with Alyse on LinkedIn. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the broadcast right now, but stay with me in the green room after we talk. So I want to thank those who have tuned in today to our live podcast episode, live podcast interview here on my YouTube channel, which is Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. And also, we will be broadcasting live. This will be live here on my podcast, which is Let's Break the Silence with Angeline on Anchor FM, Spotify, Google, Apple, and all the live streams. So we empower domestic abuse survivors to reclaim their voice, regain their power, and regain their peace and clarity in life. And you have a voice. You victims are no longer silenced. You are no longer silenced. You have a voice. And also on my website, please subscribe to my newsletter for announcements. Let'sbreakthesilence.com. You will find there my podcast. You will also find my brand new Let's Break the Silence coaching signature program, which I have launched for domestic abuse survivors. It is a 9-week program. And you can also, book a call with me. But, Jan says, thank you, Alyse. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah, Jan is amazing, and she's made great strides, and I'm super, super proud of her. So I am going to close the broadcast. I wish you all an amazing day. If you got value, please hashtag value in the comments below. And if you are watching the replay here, please hashtag replay. This will be live on my podcast, like I said, in 2 weeks. So I wish you all an amazing day. Happy Friday and happy weekend. Bye for now.